Hey Smita, wonderful to be meeting you so early in the morning.
Thanks, Priya. It's really, it was a surprise. I said, oh, I have lots of time. And then suddenly I realized, oh, it's right now. I'm happy to be here. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful, Smita. And I'm so happy that you will be leading the storytelling workshop that we're planning to launch in this month. I think we thought it was last month, but suddenly it looks like we are in December. So I want to spend some time, Smita, with you to understand a little bit about the context, your experiences here. What are some of the gaps you're seeing? Because I'm sure when today's storytelling is like the in word, right? Like we used to hear the word transformation was a very big word at one point in time, and everybody thought they knew it. But sometimes when we actually be part of a transformation, we just don't know how to handle it. In a similar way, I'm seeing from whatever I've been leading Global Coaching Lab for some years now, the word storytelling is kind of often comes up in different conversations, in coaching conversations, in leadership development conversations, when we're saying we want to bring some teaming, and there also storytelling sees a avatar there. And business, of course, customers and businesses want to have powerful stories that kind of bring people along with them, right? So this word is so, I would say, universal today. And you've been in the space for a long time. I think with all your white hair there, I think it must be really a long time.
Right.
Spend
Thanks.
time to know a little bit on all of these thoughts, Smita. So you could start off and guide us through the conversation. Primarily to start off with, hey, what brought you into this space? Is there an inflection, or is there something that motivated you to take storytelling to heart and become a playwright, direct plays, and you're also creating social impact change through stories? And you've also taken this to the corporate world. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about this journey and beliefs, Smita.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks so much, Priya. Actually, I was an avid reader, right? Right from childhood. I grew up in a world of stories. Um, and sadly, because the world of my imagination and fiction was better than my lived reality. And very early on, I realized that I actually was the sum total of the stories I was telling about myself, and to others. And this I'm talking in a childhood place, right? I'm not talking as an adult understanding. And I also realized that my lived reality, I had the power to change my lived reality with the stories that I started believing in.
Wonderful.
I saw myself shift from being a helpless victim, from being powerless or choiceless, to a universe for myself where I was extremely enabled, where I had a voice, where people stopped to listen to me and not just, make me invisible completely. And I'm talking about having lived through an entire cycle of gender based violence. I started believing my stories for myself, and then so did others. And that is how I actually ended up creating my lived reality as I have it today. And that's how I continue to create the lived reality of countless survivors of gender based violence. And that's exactly the strength that I offer to all others who want to recreate themselves and own their vulnerability and strengths through the power of storytelling. So that's where I come from, honestly.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, this is not just about a belief in storytelling that just came about from, at a cognitive level. I think it is much deep rooted because it's created that personal change within you. And that is kind of motivating you to take it to larger audiences at different spaces and spheres.
Absolutely.
Won-
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, Smita, you've been working, I mean, of course, leaving all the avatars that you have as a playwright, director, and then you're doing social impact. You've also taken this to the different organizations, be it social impact organizations or I think UN kind of global organizations, and even to corporates. Now, what there are so many, and we started the conversation by saying there's so many types of storytelling workshops and initiatives that people are doing. Now, what are some of the gaps that you are seeing, Smita, that is kind of giving us the belief that, hey, doing a workshop now at the end of the year, now is a right time for an initiative like this?
Thanks, Priya. It's a very vast question, but I'm just going to try and compress my thoughts around this. Intrinsically, we are all storytellers, right? And like I said, we are the stories that we tell ourselves. We live those stories out. We tell ourselves a story, we are a story, and we live out those stories. In fact, we're making meaning of our world, our relationships, our past, our future through the stories that we're telling ourselves. Our entire identity is a cumulative whole of the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that others tell about us. It's not just us. But very often there is a gap, which I have experienced and I've found. The gap is in the story we live and the story we tell. Because most of the story stays inside us. What gets communicated is just the end point, the tip of the iceberg. I don't get to see, feel, hear, or live through any of your journey or your struggles of how you have arrived at that end point. And so I'm just not able to connect to you in an authentic manner at all. I have seen how this leads to a lot of dissonance. It leads to a gap between intention and impact. It leads to breakdowns, disconnects, and most importantly, it leads to disinvestment.
Right.
And on the other hand, there's the other part also, right? We have to understand these stories don't get told because it's not because I don't want to tell the story. It doesn't get told or shared because I may be hesitant. I may feel this is my private space. I may feel inadequate with my articulation or the crafting of my story or how much to share, why to share, when to share, where is it going to land? Is it going to land on empathy or is it going to land in some kind of a judgment? So there are so many reasons, but the result is always a breakdown. So what I think that we would be doing from our storytelling workshop is actually to be able to identify these gaps on all sides, 360 degrees, and then access the stories that we live and we are inside us.
Wonderful. I mean, that is so beautiful, Smita, because I've attended a couple of storytelling workshops myself, and it always starts with a process. And by just knowing the process, I didn't really craft a story. I mean, the things that you just called out, right? The fact that how do I tell what I live or what I do out there, and how do I know what to share and how much to share to create that impact. And also sometimes the getting out of the resistances in our head is also a process of growth. It's not necessarily just that it can happen by the switch of a button or just by going through an experience. I think it's about getting people to become comfortable.
Yes.
That's really what you're talking, and that's very beautiful. And I think it's really calls out for people to come out and go through the experience. And I'm sure you have some thought through how we're going to spend 3 days. We're not just doing it as a 2-day virtual workshop. I mean, we're saying few hours each day, but we're making it as 3 days. How are you planning to spend the time with the audiences, Smita?
So what I'm thinking of is that what is really important, first of all, is how do I anchor my own personal story? Like, what is my brand story?
Yeah.
I say for myself, I've lived through 30 years of gender-based violence, the cycle of gender-based violence, and I've spent 30 years of expertise in resolving the issues and the challenges around gender-based violence for myself and for others. Very simple. It's rooted in, it's vulnerable, it's honest, and it's transparent, right? So it doesn't have to be as intense as this. It doesn't, it's your level of comfort. Where is it that you anchor your own personal story? Okay. What is the depth that you want to go to? So, what is the depth of vulnerability or transparency that you feel comfortable with at this point of time? From where to craft your own personal brand story? That is the first part of it, because then that is the story we are going to live for ourselves. And that is the story that we are going to project and connect through with others. This is actually also going to lead to the next step is how do we bridge the gap between what we believe about ourselves and how others believe or what others see about us and what others believe about us, right? When I bring those two things together, and I when I bring these two perceptions together and these two stories together, then actually I arrive at a story which will bind me to the other. This other can be my team, this other can be my family, this other can be my other people around me, my friends or people who I care about or not care about, whoever. But only when the two stories come together will it actually create a story that will bind us together and connect us to each other. And when all of that together, now we're invested in each other, right?
Mm.
I'm invested in myself first because
Yeah.
I'm not shying away from my what I may perceive as weaknesses, my vulnerability or whatever. So I'm invested in myself. My people around me are invested in me, and I'm invested in them. And then together we can then invest in a vision or an action or something that brings us together in what we want to achieve together. It's not going to be my vision onto you, and then you have to live up to my vision, or I have to live up to your vision. It's going to be our vision because we are, through our stories, are connected
Yeah.
together. And now we're going to create a story where we all can anchor ourselves.
Yeah.
So we can call it the business story, we can call it the brand story, we can call it the organization story, the family story, whichever perspective you want to take it into. But a story that we can all be proud of. That's what we're looking at.
Wonderful. I mean, I'm so happy that we're looking at the bond, the bind, and begetting results through this workshop, and people are able to take back something very tangible for them to enter into a new year. I've often seen people entering new year with some goals and resolutions, but oftentimes, what happens to them, right? They're short-lived. But at
Yeah.
least this can carry them through and perhaps create a new dimension to who they are in the new year.
Of course, absolutely, Priya, because what we are looking at, this is the softer aspect of what I'm talking about, the content as such. But this is going to be bracketed with skills, with elements, with ingredients, with information, and on the steps, the small steps that take me there. So it's not just going to be like a really abstract conversation and let loose in the deep ocean, but we're going to bracket all of this with small steps and how we actually arrive at each small milestone in crafting and putting together these three stories that we're talking about. And this is something that we can then carry forward into many other aspects of our life, way beyond the workshop.
Beautiful, beautiful. So people get to create something and then kind of refine it and bring it to at least a shining moment for themselves through the 3 days that they're going to give with us. And it's wonderful that it's in a virtual format, Smita. So we hope that we can bring in a diverse set of audiences for this, right? Across at least a few geographies. And let's see where it takes us.
Absolutely. Very excited about that because at the end of it, like I said, we are all storytellers. We may be doing different things, we may be living in different geographies, but as people, as humans, we are all storytellers and we live the stories we tell.
Yes, 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 and absolutely. And I think this is an opportunity where we say, hey, we create our narratives, and it's not just lying within us. We're able to narrate them effectively and
Yes.
kind of bring an identity for ourselves, and through that, perhaps be change agents in a way. I mean, every story always inspires, because that's why we're talking today, right? And we have that something within us. And I also believe that sometimes we get into this demons where we think that, hey, my story is not, good enough or strong enough to be told, and therefore we tend to keep it within ourselves. Now we'll have to gather the courage, because to say, look, I want to inspire people, and it can happen through my story, and why not, right? Getting that attitude of why not seems more important, rather than living with the demon that, hey, mine is not good enough.
Absolutely. I also want to add over here that I'm a playwright and a theater director, right? I have been crafting very immersive stories of characters who I fall in love with. I love their journey through their challenges, their hopes, their conflicts, their desires. And these characters are extremely relatable. They talk amongst themselves, and they also talk to the audience in a language of emotional truth that connects and binds and builds trust. So then it comes to a point when I, as the audience, I want to hear them, I want to walk with them, I want to understand their difficulties. I become invested in them. I cry with them, dream with them, hate with them, But most of all, I want them to win. And I know how to craft these stories. This is the strength and the skill I will bring to this workshop with all the participants. Work through their real life stories and equip them with the tools to craft their own journeys into very compelling narratives.
Beautiful.
And then look at it and how is it that they're going to modulate their telling of those stories as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
That is what is most exciting for me.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to, bringing this initiative for the first time with you, Smita. And we hope that we're able to do multiple rounds of this, because I'm sure there are so many people out there whose voices are not yet out. They need to be heard. They need to be, felt by people, and create change. So I think I'm looking forward to being part of this initiative myself, and I hope we're going to get a good set of people around here. I mean, Smita, one final question. Is there anything like, hey, this is a person who should be in the workshop, or this is the type of person? What are your thoughts? Is it going to be like a mixed audience out there? What do you think, Smita?
I'm hoping it's a mixed audience.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's a mixed audience. I'm hoping it's diverse. I'm hoping it come from different geographies and different segments of life and occupations and different, steps in their career, because that is what is going to make it most exciting. Because everybody is going to bring a different perspective to it. It's a different voice and it's going to be rich.
Absolutely.
The experience will be very enriching for all of us then.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's going to be 3 days, 3 days with 3 hours each. And I think it's on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of December. And I'm thinking the third day we're going to spend by actually getting some feedback on some of the narratives we create, right? So I think it's a rich experience for people. I think it's going to be packed, but it's going to be rich. And let's look forward to welcoming more people into the workshop, Smita. And thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Priya. Very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.